Okay, so today I'm here with Bashar Kato. Thanks so much for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a moment since we've had the last conversation, and I know a lot of people watching this channel they're going to appreciate your insights because you've generated over 30 million in revenue at this
Yes,
point online, something like this.
yes. It's been an
So,
interesting journey. We've definitely had our ups and downs as well.
mm, yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things that people can learn from your story so far, and also get a lot of perspective on what you think about at that level and the kind of way that you see the game. I think a lot of people, a lot of marketers, a lot of business owners, before they get to 8 figures, they're quite zoomed in to a lot of the tactical stuff. But like from our conversations, I've always noticed that you're quite zoomed out. You see the bigger perspective and like where you want to go, and I think that's made a big difference from an outside perspective. So,
I think all of us entrepreneurs, I think we start entrepreneurship and our businesses because we want to work for ourselves, because we want to make unlimited amount of money because we are unemployable pretty much. And we start the journey of entrepreneurship because we are good at one skill. Like I know you're great at copywriting. At the time, I was, I thought I was a good marketer, but I don't know if I am a good marketer. At least for a while, I convinced myself that I was. And then I think what happens is we get sucked into that one aspect of the business, and it gets to a point where we start making money, and then we just kind of get consumed by the money making part of it, and then we never really zoom out and say, okay, well, what's beyond this? Like, let's say I want to get to 10K a month, 100K a month, whatever the amount is. Now I'm here. What's next? And I think what happens is oftentimes once people get to that level, they just kind of get a little complacent, and then they think that it's going to be like this for the rest of their lives. And that's why they kind of get stuck into working in the business versus, zooming out and thinking, what's the next chapter for myself? And that's kind of just something that I learned from my father because he was a successful entrepreneur in Iraq. He owned the second largest factory of clothing in Iraq. And fortunately, he lost everything, wasn't able to recoup, but it was just something that I learned through watching him operate his businesses when I was a young kid.
hmm. So when you say that they get stuck at a certain level and that becomes like what they're used to,
Yeah.
is that like because of they get used to making that kind of income, or is it just that they think that that's how all entrepreneurship is? It's just more of what they've done before, and then like that they just push harder. Or
I would probably say part of it is complacency.
okay,
Part of it is not wanting to lose what they already have. Because when you don't have anything, it's like you've seen the success story of like someone hit rock bottom and then, 6, 12 months later, they
yeah,
completely changed their life and stuff like that. It's simply because they didn't have anything to lose anymore. But then they get to a point where they make some money, they accumulate some wealth, and then they don't want to lose it. And now they start playing defense versus offense. And I think that's where the game becomes a losing game because you no longer start looking at, ahead of the curve. You don't look around the corner. And that's where things like AI comes around and just literally pulls the rug from under you. And all of a sudden, your business is no longer valuable. And so I would say probably complacency is one of it. The second thing is that adds into complacency is ego. It happened to me. I learned from Sam Ovens for the longest time. After 3 years of learning from him, I went to this what now is the school headquarters. It was the consulting.com headquarters prior to that. We were in his mastermind. And I remember we were the largest company in his community. Just like 2 months prior, we had peaked $2.3 million in revenue per month. There was literally, I remember I'm having a conversation with Sam and I'm like, oh my God, it's Sam Ovens. Like, holy shit. And then I turn around and there's a line of like 10 other business entrepreneurs, that are waiting to talk to me and ask me questions of like where I am and how I got here and all that. And I took three of my leadership team. You probably remember Danny and Max, from our marketing guys.
oh
I
yeah,
took Aaron, who our director of sales. I took all those guys with me, and so we're rolling into the mastermind 4 deep, and everyone is like pulling us to the side and telling us how great we
nice,
are. And before you know it, now we think we're the shit.
yeah,
Now we think we're untouchable. And then literally months later, we had a fallout with our marketing guys. My Instagram page got taken down for 3.5 months. and our revenue drops from $2.5 million a month to $250,000 a month. That's kind of when you and I started working together, and our payroll was like $300,000 a month,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I didn't see around the corner because my ego got to me, you know?
So when you went down to that revenue, you say like when the ego got to you, is it sort of that you were trying to operate from the level you were previously instead of looking at the situation from where you were and looking at the business at the new level, or like resetting that perspective, or like where exactly do you feel like that was a mistake you made?
Well, it took about 2 years to reset the perspective and start realizing that I'm no longer a multi 8-figure entrepreneur. I am barely a 7-figure entrepreneur, and I need to operate from there and shift the focus. So that's the second mistake. But the first mistake prior to that, and why that even happened, was because I thought that we are untouchable now. I thought we have made it. I still remember earlier, late in 2022, we threw this massive event for all of our team. We had, at the time, our company was like 120-something people. We had over 80 people flying from all over the world. We rented a 3-deck, 150-foot yacht in Miami. We spent 3 days. The event cost over $150,000 for 3 days, right?
Wow.
Just for the team, just for the not community, just the team. And I remember it was like we were going across the downtown Miami, and I'm just looking at the skyline, and it's beautiful, and I'm standing right there in the back of the yacht, and I'm looking in the front, and like the team just having a blast and all that. And then I had already stopped drinking, so I had sparkling water in my hand, and I look out at the buildings, and I'm like, damn, we've made it. And literally 4 months after that, it was like this.
Wow.
And so it was the ego prior to the dip, because usually the dip comes after you become complacent, right? When you think that you've made it, when you think that, okay, I've hit my numbers, now I can take a step back and put my feet, on the table. But unfortunately, there is no, you can never get complacent, and you can never just coast, because there's gravity, and gravity pulls you. If you're not trying to grow, you're going to get pulled down.
One of the coaches I've worked with, he said to me, the moment you believe the newspaper clippings, that's when you lose. That's when you start losing. Second you think you're number one, because then you're playing to defend the title instead of playing the way that you did to get the title, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. That's a really great perspective. I think a lot of entrepreneurs that I've worked with as well, and they're great people. I think that the challenge that they face is, at this level, is a lot of the time that they're coming from a place of scarcity as well, where it's like I've made 7 figures, or I'm at multiple 7 figures, and it's only a matter of time before all of this crashes and goes away, and it's all gone, and I'm back at where I was before. So let me keep scaling to kind of avoid that from happening. Like more and more and more and more, just push harder and harder, because there's a fear of losing everything. What would you say to entrepreneurs in that sort of boat, where they're operating from that scarcity or that fear of loss?
I'll probably refer to Tony Robbins on this. He has this kind of concept of pull versus push. So when you're in a scarce mindset, when you are just starting your journey and your back's against the wall, it's like either you're working a job you hate, or you maybe just got laid off, or you lost your business, or whatever. For me, it was about 11 years ago when I lost the restaurant, 150K in debt, just nothing left. At that point, you're pushing, right? Because it's like you're grinding, you're doing everything you can just to push, just to make it happen. And you're waking up every day with that like weird feeling in your stomach, like it's like the last day of your life, and you're about to die, or something's about to happen, and you're coming from a place of scarcity. And that phase, or that feeling, is great to get you started. But then once you get to a point where you satisfy your needs, right? And obviously that depends on where you live, depends on the lifestyle, all that stuff. But for me, it happened right around like 20, 30K a month, where it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm making 20, 30K a month. I've got a couple $100,000 in the bank, and that's net income. Things are good. Life is great. What's next? Where do I go from here? And that's where the pull needs to come in. And the pull is you've got a you've got a great, not a great future, but you've got this vision in the future that is so exciting, that's pulling you every day. And usually it's beyond the money. Maybe you have a financial target that is associated with it, but usually the financial target is because of XYZ. Like when you accomplish this, you'll be able to do all these 3, 5 things that maybe you can't do right now. And that could be maybe charity, giving back, doing this, doing that. But usually start up to a purpose bigger than the money and beyond yourself, right? And so for me, for example, when I went from, having a company that was doing $100,000 a month to $2 million a month, it was more about the opportunities of the people around me versus just the cash. Because it got to a point where, I was taking home $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a month in net income, deposits into my bank account. And it's like, at that point, you just kind of look at the money and it's like, okay, I don't know what the fuck to do with this right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know like where to invest it. I don't know what to do with it. It's just sitting in the bank. It looks cool. And after a while, just kind of get numb to it. So it's like, it has to be something beyond that money that's going to drive you. And that's where you will need to go from scarcity to more of like an abundance mindset, because the scarcity isn't going to drive you anymore. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't make the switch. And that's why they stop getting driven, and then they just kind of lay back and then relax, and then before you know it, they start falling back.
Yeah, that's a really, that makes sense to me, because for me, my income hasn't really changed after crossing 15, 20K a month. After that, it just became about how do I help my team kind of hit their goals. That's often what I find myself thinking about. Is like I bring somebody into the team. I really like them. They're a really cool person. And I ask them what their goals are. And I'm now thinking about like, how are we going to finance that basically? Because we got to make it happen at the same time. We also want to create a career for them so that they can help us and give me my time back in some capacity. So yeah, I think that's a really great way to see it. Well, who do you think you needed to become to get to this level in terms of identity? Like how do you see yourself today differently to back when you were getting started?
Warren Buffett says a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. Unfortunately for me, I don't learn from my mistake. I don't learn from other people's mistakes. And for me, I have to make the same mistake twice for me to learn from it. I think it's kind of like the stove, theory. It's like you tell a child the stove is hot, they won't not touch it, or they won't, learn unless they touch it, and they're like, oh my God, the stove is really hot. I think for us, we can get taught as much as we want and learn as much as we want. Unless we experience, it doesn't really land and it doesn't really sit. It's kind of like teachers versus, like, when they say, if you want to become an entrepreneur, don't go and get an MBA, actually go start a business. Because you can sit in a classroom and learn about a business as much as you want. Unless you go in the real world and get your ass kicked, it's like you're not really going to learn. And so for me, the thing that truly helped me, I remember it was December of 2023. I was at a Patrick Bet-David conference. He has an office here down the street from where I live in Miami. And it was an annual planning session or something like that. There was about like 40 entrepreneurs in a room. And in the workbook that he shared with us, there was a quote by Winston Churchill. And the quote said, "The further back you look, the further ahead you can see." The further back you look, the further ahead you can see. And it was around that same time that I had been getting coached by a therapist that I've been working with for the last 3 years now. And she's always telling me, Bashar, humans are always looking for answers out there, but what we don't realize is we've got all the answers inside. We've got inner wisdom that we don't tap into enough. And in order for us to tap into it, we need to be able to quiet the outside world so that way we can go into the inside world. And so since then, every year, what I do is, at least once a year, I take about 3 to 5 hours and I reflect on the previous year. Because what I realize is, although I can learn from other people, but I've actually experienced a lot of things and I can learn better from my own experience. And there's a quote that I live by: I don't lose, I either win or I learn, right? Well, if I don't actually go back and reflect, how am I going to learn if it was a loss? Otherwise, it's just a loss, right? And I don't know about you, but I don't like to lose. So
Yeah, I'm
if
quite
something
competitive
doesn't
too.
work,
Yeah.
exactly. So if something doesn't work, I'm like, all right, I didn't get the result that I want, but can I at least extract a lesson that can help me make better decision in the future? So right now for me, it's a lot less about learning new experiences and learning new knowledge versus going back and learning from my own experience and saying, okay, I did this, it didn't work. What did I learn from it? So now I've got in my notes in my phone, I mean, it's getting so long. It takes me about 25 minutes just to listen to it through like Audible. It's reflections that I have over the last 5 years, either yearly reflections or about specific situation reflections. What's funny is actually I have a reflection about our experience together when we worked together 3 years ago. Now that I'm
Oh
talking
wow.
about it, I start remembering. Yeah. And so it's like every major relationship, business relationship, anything that's happened in business or personal life or whatever. And I realized that I'm creating my own principles like Ray Dalio does. So it's like for investments, I have principles. For hiring, I have principles. For this, I have this. And this has tremendously helped me in decision making. And I've come to realize that although I like to say that I am better at it, but I still have a slight ego about me. You know, big
Yeah.
ego runs in my family. I don't know what it is. My father had it. All of his brothers have it. I've struggled with it all my life. And so I sometimes have a difficulty learning from other people. Not the greatest, not the greatest characteristic of a good leader, because good leaders are great learners, right? And I love to learn, but sometimes I have resistance learning from certain people. And so versus what I try to do is I look back and I say, okay, I make these mistakes. What can I learn from them? Otherwise, if I don't extract lessons, now they're just mistakes that was just like a waste of time, you know?
I think there's a lot of let's just say marketers, right? Specifically marketers who watch this channel that have made mistakes in the past, but they're blind to the mistake because they don't even see that it's a mistake yet until maybe reflecting 3 to 6 months later. I think a lot of
Yeah.
mistakes are opportunity cost mistakes. You don't see it directly in your business. Like for example, you could be at 20K a month for 2, 3 years, and because you're at the same income, you don't particularly see any mistake. But somebody that's got more experience might say, hey, in those 2 years, there was potential to build $100,000 a month business if you had done X, Y, Z. So how do you kind of, as you grow and as you continue to you know learn as an entrepreneur, how do you see your blind spots in that way and take reflections and see like, hey, that was actually an opportunity to learn because we didn't grow, because we didn't do this thing that we really could have done.
Awareness is definitely a big skill that gets built over time. Because as you said, like I remember when I look back at certain situations, I didn't even have the awareness that things were happening. Versus now I do have the awareness. So I think it's about getting I'm going to circle back to ego because I think a lot of times, especially entrepreneurs, we don't see our own blind spots because we have a certain ego about us because we think we know it all, you know? And the minute that you not realize, but admit that you don't know something and admit that there's a lot that you don't know, then you're able to create the awareness about where you are and where you're not, and then what are you missing. The other thing that I would say is just hanging around people that are better than you, and not better than you financially and or in business wise, but better than you in certain areas. Because there was a point in time where I used to say, if you're not making more money than me, we can't, like, it's not only we can't be friends, it's like I'm not even going to listen to anything you say, right? And that was such a foolish thing until what I realized is like I can learn even at $2 million a month. I can learn from someone that's doing $5,000 a month because there's something that they're doing that I don't know about. I think it was a month and a half ago. I hung out with a friend of mine. We're all in a alumni quantum group. All the kind of old quantumers that were in Sam Ovens' mastermind. We created the group, and he's in Germany, I believe. He was coming to Miami, and we hung out. Never made more than 60 grand a month in revenue, right? If this was 2 years, 3 years ago, Bashar, he would have said, dude, I'm not going to waste my time and go freaking have dinner with you. Like, why would I do that, right? Today, I was like, he knows something I don't. Let's go have dinner. I'm buying, you know? He ended up buying for what's it called, for clarity there. But We had a conversation for probably about an hour and a half, and maybe I spoke like 10 words because I was so fascinated about a specific thing that he had done so brilliantly in his business that I was like, holy shit, I need to learn from this guy. And I mean, it was funny because he came to the conversation in a way of like him looking up to me, and he wanted to like extract advice from me, and it kind of ended up being the other way around because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so fascinated about like this thing, like how are you able to figure it out? And then about a week after that conversation, for the following week, I was like in this meditative state of like just deep think about what he had taught me pretty much in the hour and a half dinner. And then since then, I've made a couple business decisions that actually have put us on a trajectory to triple our sales in the next 3 to 6 months because of that conversation that I had with him. But I went into it without any ego. I went into it with the thought process of like, I don't care where he is. He's got a unique experience that I can learn from. You know, there's the old saying of like, you've got one mouth and two ears. Like, you know, do a lot less talking and more listening, you know?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely an inside joke among many marketers about business owners that will say, he won't take it from you, but if he pays so-and-so who's a 9-figure entrepreneur and he says the same thing, then he might listen to it, you know? So I've had quite a few marketers, you know, they've had that experience with clients. So it's quite refreshing to hear that there's always like an opportunity to learn, you know, from you, because I think many business owners, they don't do that, and it makes the team frustrated, because I mean, if the team's in the operations and they're in the data, they're going to see stuff that they're like very close to, right? And it's like that's feedback, and that's an insight that needs to go all the way to the CEO, and sometimes the CEO doesn't take it like appropriately because like, well, you know, someone in the team, if somebody else says it from outside that's making more than me, I might take that advice, you know? So that's interesting.
Well, the thing is, the one thing that I've recognized about us entrepreneurs is we love talking and talking about ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
And like literally, you know, just like if you, I always say, it's like, dude, if you want to learn, just ask an entrepreneur a few questions and then sit and listen and don't say anything. And they will just talk, you know? Like, I think a podcast that interviews entrepreneurs is the most brilliant thing because we love talking. And it's like you just ask a few questions and then it's just like word vomiting, you know, like I'm doing it right now, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like we love talking, and because of that, we don't listen. And if we listen, we hear, we don't listen. We hear to respond, we don't hear to listen.
That's deep, yeah. It's a good point. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I'm listening to this person's perspective, but, you know, it's really just, I have something else I want to say afterwards to them, so I'm just kind of, you know, waiting.
Yeah, I kind of don't care about what you're saying. Just finish so I can talk.
How do you create those feedback loops then, to especially with teams, like making sure that you actually hear what the team is saying and not, you know, go blind to it or, you know, miss something that's really insightful from a team?
The minute you go from, so here's the problem with the creator economy that has become so massive and so on. I think it's incredible because anyone can start a business that evolves around them and scale it to Mr. Beast level, which is just incredible, right? You and I can start a business anywhere and with a camera, with a phone, and sell a service, and we can make $5,000-$10,000 a month like that easily, you know, which is incredible. You know, 20, 30, 50 years ago, that wasn't possible. The problem because of that is, it again, you're going to hear me talk about ego a lot. It serves the ego a lot, and it becomes about the person. And when it becomes about the person just stops listening to everybody else, and it's like, now I'm the genius with 1,000 helpers. For me, I saw my father's experience. When my father's business fell apart, he was never able to recoup simply because he was the genius with 1,000 helpers. No one could give him advice. He would never listen to anyone. His way was the only way, and that's it. And I think as an entrepreneur, when you go from, you know, a creator to, I don't know, I don't even like the word entrepreneur, to more of an owner, and then later to even like a chairman or like an investor, which is really what everyone needs to be thinking about. Because let's face it, we all just have high-paying jobs. That's all it is, you know. And what you really want to become is an owner, because an entrepreneur and an owner, I think, are different. An owner is someone that's able to walk away from their business for a month, and and everything is just fine, and you've got a leadership team in place that not only is sustaining the business, but it's also scaling the business, right? Versus in my definition, at least, an entrepreneur means more of a, to me, it means more of like an active thing. You're actively running the business, you're actively driving the business, which obviously every business needs to start there. But that's the problem, is like, it needs to go from you to team to you out of the picture and team running. And the only way for that to happen is by you finding the right people. I remember, what's his name? I know you follow Dan Martell, and you talk about Dan Martell a few times. He always mentions Richard Branson. And I remember I saw an interview by Richard Branson one time. They said, how do you have multi-billion-dollar companies? He's like, well, I do three things. He's like, I create a vision big enough for other, motivated, ambitious people's vision to fit inside. Number two, I hire the right people. Number three, I stay the fuck out of their way.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good.
And usually we have a decently big vision. Sometimes we do have decent job at hiring the right people, but staying out of their way is something that I know for the longest time I struggled with. Because like you want your fingers everywhere. And unless you learn to step away and empower your people, you'll never be able to build a big business or a business that actually fires you, or a business, as Patrick Bet-David says, runs away from you, is able to run without you.
It's tricky from the freelance and marketing side of things, though, because at the same time, some people don't speak up about their goals and their challenges. And as an entrepreneur, when you have a team, you kind of want them to be direct and be like clear with you, like, hey, here's this problem, here's what I need, or here's what I'm struggling with, here's what I can't solve. And sometimes they don't want to say it, maybe for ego, or maybe for fear or something, or maybe because in my case before, it's been like, I've had a teammate that just didn't feel like they could approach me about stuff, and I needed to just be more approachable. But what would you say for people inside a team that really want to talk to their client or to the person that they're directly reporting to, and maybe have more assertiveness, or just be more clear about what they actually need to get the job done?
I think both parties have a responsibility here. So the business owner first has a responsibility of not, and this was we had hired a COO, who actually was working with you when we worked together, and she said this to me. She said the bigger your business becomes, the stronger, the more weight your words carry, and with great power comes great responsibility. And she said the thing that you have to be careful of is turning people into yes men around you. Because entrepreneurs usually have a lot of enthusiasm. When we have ideas, we come down with a lot of power, a lot of energy, right? And other people become enthusiastic as well. And especially in a bigger organization, the individual you're referring to, it's like, are you willing to bet against this guy's ideas and say, no, I don't think it's the right one? And what if it fucks up? What if actually his idea is good and you kind of, veer it off course, and then it doesn't do good? Or what if your idea sucks or whatever, So there is a responsibility for the business owner to, it's not about being approachable, but it's about like, here's what I do. If I have a new idea, I try to plant seeds, and I try to have the team come up with the answers.
Okay, yeah.
And instead of me giving them answers, I learned this in, I think it's Dale Carnegie. What's the book called? Influence People or something. How to win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
So he says, don't tell people what to do. Instead, guide them by asking them questions. leading questions, you know? So an example, I did it this morning. Two pieces of content. We posted one, it did great. We posted another one, it didn't do very good a couple days ago. So I can clearly see why that happened. So instead of going to the team and say, hey guys, this piece of content did well because XYZ, this piece of content didn't do well because XYZ, I said, hey guys, can we analyze these two pieces of content? And can you guys give me your feedback on why this did well and this didn't do well? And there was 3 people in the thread, and after about 3-4 back and forth from each, they figured out the answer. They're like, oh, that's why. Great.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony Robbins calls it being effective versus being efficient. Being effective, you get it done right away. I tell you what to do. Being efficient is what lasts long. Being effective, if I tell you what to do right now, you're going to get the end. It's kind of like giving someone a fish versus teaching them how to fish. If I give you a fish, I'm going to feed you today. If I teach you how to fish, I can feed you for forever, right? Yeah. And so the same thing is like teaching people how to think for themselves and empowering them. So that's on the business owner side. On the employee or contractor side, I would say grow some balls. You know, because if you're afraid to if you're walking around eggshells, then like for me personally, if I was employed by someone, I don't care if I get fired, I'm going to say what I think is right or what I think is wrong. If I get fired, then that's on them. They don't value my input.
Makes sense.
You know? I will never stand down, for example. You know, it's like, look, we don't have to come to a consensus, but I'm going to share my thoughts. And that's the other thing. Like for us, the one book that I have a book club in the company, and the one book that I have the company read at least once a year is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And in the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, one thing it talks about is debate is healthy. Challenging each other is healthy. And fortunately, we each have a little bit of, and I had it for the longest time, had massive amounts of it, people pleasing. We don't want other people to be mad at us or not like us or whatever. So we care about what other people think. We don't tell them that, hey, bro, there's something stuck between your teeth. Or like, hey, bro, you've got some gel stuck on your hair or whatever. It's like, because we don't want to look like an asshole. It's like, yeah, but the guy has shit stuck all over his hair. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So it's like we have that kind of the need of the desire of having people like us, so we won't point out the negative stuff, right? We won't speak up. But the problem is, when you don't speak up in my company, means you don't care. When you don't challenge others, means you don't care. If you challenge me, means you care. Means you might be risking your job, but you're still challenging me. I love that. We don't need to agree. We can go back and forth, but as long as you spoke your mind out. And if you don't, then I don't need you in my team. Like if someone just always agrees with me, it's like, yeah, your days are like we're on countdown right now.
So in that case, then I think for many freelancers who have clients where they do speak up and the client doesn't really listen, then they should just get a better team that they should work with then.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man.
There's
just in America.
Fire them. Yeah.
Just in America alone, there's 33 million small businesses. Like there's not a lack of businesses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of marketers think there's a lack though. I mean, many of the people I've coached have often thought that like the market's dead or copywriting's dead or, the info space is, got less jobs than before. And I often say, I don't know about, where you're getting that from. My friends are always asking me if, I know somebody for this position or that position. And I find that business owners actually have a harder time finding talent than the reverse, than, let's say, copywriters finding talent. What's been your experience with that? Like, do you find that it's quite difficult to find a good marketer, a good copywriter?
I think the market always pays for value. And so if you're approaching the market the same way you were in 2020, 2022, I would say it's probably a losing battle. I don't know what your experience is right now, but the way that I operate, like let's say if we're going to talk about marketing, I tell my team, personally, I don't think being just a copywriter, being just a video editor, being just a graphic designer is valuable anymore. I think you need to be a kind of an all-encompassing quote unquote agency, especially with AI. Because any half decent copywriter can become a pretty good copywriter with ChatGPT. Like I don't consider myself as what's it called, as a good copywriter, but it's like I can have ChatGPT help me out. Now, is it going to be the best copy? Probably not, but I can go from like a C level to maybe a B, maybe even B plus by leveraging ChatGPT. Yeah. I can go from like an A minus to an A plus probably by leveraging ChatGPT. So at the end of the day, it's about value creation. How much value are you creating in the workspace? And that's the kind of value that's how much money you're going to make, right? Things evolve, things change, things move up and move on. Are you evolving with them? Are you keeping up? Like I remember there is I have a couple of friends that like used to help people with like VSLs. Like I'll help script out your VSL and that kind of stuff. I'll do the copy, or like email copywriters or whatever, like specifically email copywriters. And I'm just like, dude, I don't think that's valuable anymore by itself. Now you combine that with a couple other things like funnel building and like if you come to me and say, hey man, I will create your entire funnel end to end. I will build the funnel. I will create your VSL. I will create your ads. I will create your emails. I'll create the SMS sequences. I'll create this. Then that's valuable, and you can probably do it with the same amount of work and effort that you used to just write the copy for emails, for example, And so it's like people really have to evolve with where the market is today. Otherwise, I truly believe that the info space that we know of it today is going to be very different in probably, I would say, 12 to 18 months. And we're already preparing for that. We're I don't want to say transitioning, but our vision for 5 years has also shifted a little bit. We've gone from like a university that provides people skills to more of a building a marketplace, which is kind of what we're going to be working on towards the end of the year, because education is a lot more accessible than it once was, with the existence of LLMs and so on.
Interesting. How do you see the market for info then changing? Like what does that mean that it's going to be different 12 to 18 months from now?
I think it's not going to be about here is education, learn how to do it, go implement it. I think it's going to be more about here is an agent that does it for you, that has been trained with this information. So instead of training humans, we're going to train bots, and then we're going to be selling bots that do this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think of the fact that, well, I mean, like I'm not I don't use AI as much in the process as I could for my business. I think that there's gaps for sure in my skill there. But I've always had the thought that, like with copy, for example, the one thing I don't delegate to the AI is the ideation and like the overarching strategy of the marketing, because I just don't feel like the AI has enough context or can rationalize about it the way I would with my experience. So how does that kind of play into maybe this macro of this market? Is like, can the bots or the agents really do stuff at the level where you need them to, or you're going to have to oversee those bots and like, can it really do it at that level?
I think Dan Martell has a great framework to this. He calls it the 10-80-10 rule, which is you create the 10%, and this isn't anything, as a business owner, as the supervisor, as the entrepreneur, as the whatever, as the copywriter. It could be anything. It could be with building new products. It could be with writing email. It could be with building funnels. It could be with anything, really. You create the vision for what you're trying to do, and that's the first 10%. Right. So for you, maybe it's the ideation, maybe it's the headline, right? Then you delegate the 80%, the middle 80%, which is the body, the everything else, right? And then the last 10 is where you kind of QC before it gets shipped out. So 10-80-10. You do the first 10 and the last 10, and you delegate the middle 80, right? So for example, we just launched 2.5 months ago. We launched a new AI vertical, right, where we teach people how to become AI business strategists, that where they help small business owners, identify gaps into their business and implement AI and automations to scale their businesses. I created a vision. I want to launch a skill with AI, and I want something to do with bots and automations. Okay, then I delegated the middle 80%, which was the research. I want to research what skills to do, how are we going to price it, what offers, all that kind of stuff. And I built 3 teams where we kind of created a contest with a $3,500 prize for the winner. And that took like 2 months, where they did research and TAM research and all that kind of stuff. And then we also found an AI expert. I'm not an AI expert, so I'm not going to try to go teach it. And then we found an AI expert, onboarded the AI expert, all that stuff. And then the final 10% was QC of the product before it got launched. What is it going to be? How is it going to be? What's the offer? Webinar, that kind of stuff. Here's what we're going to do, boom, boom, boom. And we went and launched, right? Email, for example, as you said, you come up with the idea, you do the research for like the angle or the headline or whatever. AI writes the copy, and then you come and you kind of edit, put your human touch into it, your Matthew, kind of a secret sauce into it, give it last twists and changes, and then ship it out. But I think that will condense the process from, I don't know how long it takes you to write an email. Let's just say it takes you 30 minutes to write an email to say 15 minutes or 10 minutes, right? All of a sudden you can produce double the amount of work, triple the amount of work. As you get better, as you, train your bots better, that will go down to 15, 10, maybe even 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of copywriters I coach that make a lot more money today than they used to from copywriting, simply because they can triple their output, so
For sure.
But the one thing that I found with the copywriters I've been coaching is that a lot of the newer writers, they actually have a harder time getting into the industry because they don't have to do the full skill anymore, because some of the AI will take over the middle of the process, or some of the so in this new space where you've got AI, I mean, I only know the copywriting space, but like, what about the skill gaps that people may have, the fact that they don't actually learn the process end to end, they're just kind of relying on these agents? Like, is that maybe where the opportunity is like to actually know the skill and be able to use the AI? Is that maybe where you can create an advantage for yourself?
I think I don't know where I heard this, but it was someone that I listen to all the time. They called it the T style or T level, like leadership or skill learning or specialty kind of like the way that you operate something is you should have it as a T shaped or whatever. I don't know. I'm not explaining it correctly. Anyways, what I mean by that is you should be an expert at one thing. So the vertical kind of line of the T, and then you should be a generalist at a bunch of stuff, right? You should have knowledge about a bunch of stuff, but then you can go deep in one thing. So for example, if we're going to talk about someone that's a copywriter, that's their skill, they know other stuff and they can do other stuff. Like, again, I'm going to go back to a funnel, because when I think copywriting, I think email, I think funnel. But you can build an entire funnel end to end, and let's just call it a VSL funnel. You can create the funnel, design the funnel, create the ads, even create the VSL, create the thank you page, create the homework before the call, follow-up sequences, pre-call sequences, email automations. You can do all that. So you could do all that. So that's like the horizontal part of the T, but then your main thing is copy, right? So it's like when you write the VSL, you're very good at that. You write the email, because really a lot of the funnel building is all about copy, right? Like right now, for example, we don't have a copywriter on hand, like inside of our team anymore. We used to, but we don't anymore. We have specialists and not specialists, but channel operators. So we've got someone that's in charge of our funnels and in charge of our email and in charge of our paid ads, and is the same person. And then we've got our marketing team right now is only 2 people, and they're producing triple the output when we had 7 people in the marketing team.
That makes sense. Yeah, makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
And then we have 1 person in charge of Instagram. I don't know if you remember, but we used to have like half a dozen people in charge of just Instagram, right? Right now we got a single person that does Instagram, and we get about 25 to 30 million views a month. 1 person.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
How do you train the team like that? Like, if I were to, let's say, okay, team, we're going to level up and we're going to integrate AI into our workflow so we can improve our output without working any more hours. Like, how do you go about training a team like that?
So early last year, when ChatGPT came out, I was like, all right, this sounds great. I don't know. I'm more of the later adopter to new things usually. You know, I'm a little bit rigid in my ways. Not a great characteristic of a great entrepreneur, but I am. You know, I'm a little bit more rigid than the average person. I don't implement new things very easily. You know, so when ChatGPT came out, I was like, all right, this sounds cool, and then I would try it here and there, and I would see Aaron was like, he jumped all into it, created custom GPTs right away, started training the sales team, all that stuff. And then I remember early 2025 when agentic AI came out, with AI agents came out, late 24, I was like, all right, the next skill we're going to launch is going to have to be with AI. What? Yeah. I don't know. So I started talking to people like, how do you monetize AI? How do you make money with AI? And it wasn't until early 25 when agentic AI and AI agents came out. I think it was like March or something. And I remember one night I sat on the computer until like 3 o'clock in the morning just watching videos about agentic AI and how it works and all that. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, that's it. That's what we're going to do. The next morning, I went to everybody in the company and I said, here's a challenge. In the next 7 days, I want you to go build AI agents in what you're doing. And I want you to create a process on how to double your output by cutting your weekly hours in half.
Yeah.
So double your output and cut your working hours in half. So for them, the incentive was, holy shit, I get to work less hours. Great, I will do that, right? Yeah. And then double the output. And then everyone in the company is on small base plus percentage of upside based on their expected, what they work on. So if someone is on Instagram, he gets a percentage of everything that Instagram generates. If someone is on email, everything email generates, and so on. And so they're incentivized to find ways. And the way that I have been, more, I don't think I do a great job at it, but the way that I approach it from my own self, but now also with the team, is AI first approach.
Yeah.
So anything I do, can I first start with AI before I go to something else? So it's an AI first approach. And I learned this from the CEO of Google. I watched a podcast with him like 6-7 months ago. And that's what he kind of implemented in Google. It's like AI first approach, And I always tell our team is you guys need to stop doing and start prompting. So every time I want to do something, instead of going to do it, think, can I prompt something and generate something and do something with it? You know what I mean?
You're challenging me here. I can feel the discomfort of doing it that way. I'm like, oh no, we're gonna just ask AI now. That's interesting. If Google's doing it, but then I gotta check my ego there. Interesting. That's something I gotta learn. Okay. Yeah, I actually have a lot of resistance to this. Like literally hearing you say it, like, you gotta ask AI first. I wonder what it's coming from. Maybe it's a fear of losing control of the process or losing the quality.
Sure.
Yeah. So okay. So I think that let me ask this then, and I think maybe then the audience can also benefit from this. So like I'm experiencing this frustration of using AI right now, this resistance to using it to that level. No doubt, many people listening that are copywriters and marketers, there's an opportunity for them to integrate AI more into their process so they can get more output and they can, close more clients or make more money for their existing clients. What do you think? What would you say? What would you say? To just grow some balls and do it? Well, yeah?
I would say take 1 week.
Okay.
And just try it. It's kind of like I saw our team posted today on Instagram or a couple days ago. It said alcohol is not your best friend, but before you quit it forever, test it for a week first and see what happens. See how your life, changes. So to those who either have resistance towards it or are like, I don't know, and stuff like that, I'll just take the week, like today, or this week, take the next 3, 4, 5 days and say, okay, before I do anything, before I write an email, before I build a funnel, before I create ads, before I, whatever it is that you do, I'm going to think to myself, I'm going to use AI first. And if you don't know how to use AI, go to ChatGPT and ask it, how can I use you to do this thing that I'm doing? Right?
Yeah, right.
This is usually my process. How can I change it by leveraging you so that way I can double my input, my output, and cut my input in half? Right? And so try it for the next 3-4 days and then see what happens. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, no problem. But maybe even if you don't like it, and even if you don't go 100%, I guarantee you're going to probably make a few shifts and a few pivots that are probably going to improve your existing process.
Yeah. And like, while we're having this conversation, I'm thinking, I know that my team, they're using AI, but I think that we could use more AI. And I was thinking, how do I get my team to do it? It's like, well, I just need to embrace it first as the leader, right?
Yep.
I just have to,
Yeah.
if I'm doing it, then I can set that as the precedent.
It's interesting. I used to, if I read something in a book, or if I want to deliver a message to someone, if I want to deliver an insight to someone, I'll send them a screenshot, I'll send them a quote or whatever. Now what I do, so I spend probably about 2 to 3 hours a day with AI every day, 7 days a week, and I use it as my thinking buddy. So that's, it's kind of like think as if you have a consultant that's sitting next to you and you're chatting with it all day. And I use it for everything. Usually what I do is I copy a thread, an AI thread, a ChatGPT thread, and I send it to someone. I'm like, hey, can you please read this for me? I was teaching, we redid our Amazon webinar a couple of months ago, and I needed to teach our Amazon coach, who now became the face of Amazon, instead of me, on how to come up with the 3 secrets, perfect webinar, teaching her all the Russell Brunson stuff. And I'm like, and instead of me sitting there and teaching her, I just literally went to ChatGPT and I'm like, here's the offer. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach my team member on this. Can you please give me how Russell Brunson comes up with the 3 secrets of perfect webinar? How he turns the limiting beliefs and that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, all right, copied it, pasted it, rate this, read it again, read it again. Okay, repeat it to me in your own words. Great, we're done. 5 minutes later.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, there's a lot there. I'm gonna definitely look for ways to integrate into what we're already doing. Appreciate that. That's really good insight. I've actually got quite a lot of notes over here from our conversation so far. I think, to circle back to ego, there's something I've experienced with many marketers and copywriters specifically. I think copywriting, the nature of copywriting, it's easy to create an ego with that skill because you kind of just sit there and on a Google Doc and write some words and you get paid more, for that than many people who are working for a very long time get paid. So in the beginning of my career, I thought, I got this, I figured this thing out, and I think a lot of copywriters, they have that as well. It's like they write a couple of emails or they write a Facebook page or they write a Facebook ad or landing page and they make money. And then they think that they've figured it out. They've escaped the matrix. They've cracked the system, whatever they want to call it. But then they get stuck. And this is where I usually have found many of my clients, come to me. They're stuck at 5K or 8K or 10K because of that sort of, that ego. It's like, oh, I kind of already know this stuff. I don't need to implement it. And so I've often found that the challenge for me is to try and say the same thing that they've heard somewhere else that they didn't implement because it's like they think that they know it. Try say it in a different way to them so that they're like, okay, let me implement that thing. Because it's like a lot of the things that we've talked about today, I'm sure people listening might say, oh, I've heard that somewhere before. But are they actually implementing it is really, that's where the self-reflection comes in. It's like, you've heard that, but are you actually doing it? Because to know it and not do it is not really to know it, That's been my experience with, quite a lot of copywriters. That's where the ego comes in. What else do you think could hold somebody back at that level, like 5 to 10K a month? That early phase of being an entrepreneur.
I think they're just not hanging around with the right people. They're not hanging around in the right circles, Because if you're complacent at 5 to 7K, man, you've got such a long way to go. I remember it was last year, one of my the copywriter that we had at the time, actually no, he wasn't a copywriter. He was a content creator, funnel designer. He came to me and said, "Hey Bashar, I want to scale my income," and he had the opportunity within our company because he was compensated based on performance, just like everyone else is. And he's like, "But I'm kind of struggling to like become disciplined and show up and put in the work and that kind of stuff." It's like, all right, I get it. I was like, "Let me ask you a question. How much are you making right now?" I think at the time I was making like 3,500 or 4,000 a month or something like that. I was like, "I want you to close your eyes and think of the 5 people you hang out with on a daily basis, weekly basis." Like, all right, yep, got them. You know their names, their first names? Yep, got it. Okay, cool. How much do they make? 1,500, 1,200, 700. He lives in Pakistan. This guy's he makes 2,000, 50. I'm like, all right, well, here's your problem. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're the top guy in that circle. He's like, okay. I'm like, do they tell you that you're doing great? Yeah, all the time. Do they tell you like, why are you working so hard all the time? Actually, yeah, they do. Do they tell you that you should take more vacations? Yeah, they do. Yeah. Do they tell you that like you guys should hang out more or go drink or play games or whatever? Yeah, they do. I'm like, well, here's your problem. If you want to increase your income, hang around people that are where you want to be at. I remember the first time I joined UpLevel, so Consulting Accelerator, Sam Oven's first program, then UpLevel. I was at, I think like 20K, 25K a month or something like that, Consulting Accelerator. And I got into UpLevel, and the first like 48 hours, I saw this guy who was in the same space as me, an Amazon coach. He posted a Stripe screenshot. It was like day 16 of the month, and he had collected $56,000. And I was like, holy shit, this guy's about to make $100,000 this month. And to me, it was like, it didn't even make sense. Like, it didn't even register. The fact that there is somebody that I know. And it's not like, okay, yeah, I know this company. I know. No, it's like, it's someone I know. I can message. I can touch. It's going to make $100,000 this month. My entire life shifted, bro. My entire life shifted. And since then, it was like, literally within 3 months, 100K, 150K, 13 months later, 1.7 million. Right? Yeah. And so you just got to surround yourself with people that are above where you are, and then you're going to look at your situation and be like, I'm pathetic. Like, what am I doing right now? You know? Like, if you want to feel the fire, really hang out around people that are like way above your what's it called? And I'll leave you with this as well about this topic. There's a book called The Secret of the Millionaire Mind, or The Millionaire Mind. I think it's Secret of the Millionaire Mind. Harv, something T. Harv, his name is the author. And there's something he talks about, he calls it the money thermostat. And he says that everyone has a low thermostat and a high thermostat. When you get to the high thermostat, kick up your feet. When you get to the low thermostat, that's when you go into grind mode. So you got to figure out what your low thermostat is and increase that, so that way you don't get that low. And you got to figure out what your high thermostat is and increase that as well, so that way you don't lax when you get there and you continue climbing. And he also says never get off the elevator of making money, because there's always a higher floor.
Yeah, I really like it. I went to a mastermind a month ago, and there were some people that make some serious cash. It just suddenly, I just worked the whole month, Bashar. I tell you, I went to that mastermind thinking, I'm very interested to see, because, it was probably 60 people that all make a lot more than me, multiple more than me. The one guy probably, probably makes in a day, probably maybe 2-3 days what I made in the whole month, and I was thinking, I've done such a great job, And then this guy just pulls in and he's like, yeah, no, we're generating X amount, and then another guy that was at the mastermind, exited the company for over $100 million, and he's just busy sitting there as well. And it's like, wow, these are really, but when you sit with them and you're chatting to them, and you realize how grounded
normal
they are,
people.
how friendly, normal. So it's like, well, this guy did it, and he's a really cool dude, and he's really friendly, and I don't find that the conversation we're having, he's like untouchable in terms of intellect. Like he's further along the journey, but like I could do it if I push myself. So I think that I'm a big believer in that. And I think people that do this become big believers after the first time that they do it. Somebody that goes to, invests in a program and gets around a circle of people that are at the next level, after you've done that 1 or 2 times, it's almost like your default's like, I need to be around a bit like higher performance people. But I think the challenge I've seen from a lot of, entrepreneurs in the early part of the journey is because they haven't done it yet. They're like not sold on it, even though they hear it from you and me and from other people. It's like, increase your circle. They still don't do it. They just sit there like, yeah, I know I should. And then they don't really actually apply this. And I feel like what you've just said is probably the number one thing that people should do at 5K a month is, it's self-serving to say it because I have a mastermind, but it's like I found that literally the number one reason that our clients win in the copywriting mastermind that I run, the Copy Dojo, is because the second that they join, they're making, let's say, 3-4K a month. They join and then they see a win from, somebody made $25,000 in a month from copywriting, and he's smiling, and they were busy telling me if they get to 6K a month, they'll be happy as can be, and then somebody else is at 25K, So that kind of pushes them. Yeah, I guess really just that, like, what do you have to say if they're like, yeah, I know this, Bashar, but like, yeah, I haven't done it yet.
I would just say 5K a month is no money. If you think 5K a month is a lot of money, it's I don't know. I think the average income in America is like 57 or 60K a year or something like that. So you're just above like poverty line. You know what I mean? It's honestly not. It's no money, and it only requires one small hiccup for you to lose it all. And take it from someone who generated, $20 million in a year. In 2 years, I took home $7 million in net income. And a small hiccup almost bankrupted us in about 8 months.
Crazy.
Had I not been disciplined about those 2 years and actually saved a lot of the money that I had, and if I lived large like a lot of the guys you see in Miami and driving Lamborghinis and flying private, and if I was that kind of guy, man, we would have been bankrupt year one. I've had to put back into the company about $3 million to get us to where we are, right? But that's because I was disciplined enough and realized that, sure, I'm making all this money, but that's nothing, One little hiccup. And I actually have a rule that I live by, which is you're always only 6 to 12 months away from bankruptcy. I don't care how much money you've got in the bank.
That's really good. That's so good. I need to write that one. It's so true. It's like I would talk to copywriters and they'll say, you could literally lose your clients tomorrow. And, you say that your situation right now is bad, like your cash is bad right now. What's your life going to look like 2 months from now if you don't have clients? And you never know. It's not even like if the business is, in the best. I mean, you had a massive team that the team went down. It's not even because you're like you're a great guy to work with. I always enjoy working with you. Just at that point when you go down, you might have had to make some cuts back then, and other businesses have to make cuts. Like I've had a client that they were like, yeah, no, we can't work with you right now just based on our current situation, maybe 6 months from now. So I think in our space, that's actually quite common. The volatility of, let's say, info businesses, it can happen quite quickly that, you'll leave a client and, you might get them back 6 months later, but they're gone. So, a copywriter could literally have no clients and they're like, no, the cash flow is not so great. It's like, well, what's the opportunity cost here? If you don't have clients, 6 to 12 months is really good. It's really, really good. And I think that's also a good point about the 5K is not really a lot of money. We've invested over $100,000 into the production of this YouTube channel, to get to the point where we get to interview you and other great guests. And so when I hear copywriters, or marketers, they get a little bit uncomfortable about, let's say, investing 5 figures or, I don't know, even less than that. Just, it's like, well, if you're uncomfortable investing, that little, you're really going to have it's going to be a long journey to get to the point where you hit the financial goals that you've always talked about, because, it's going to cost millions of dollars to make millions of dollars in the long run. You're going to have to you're going to have to pay those prices. There's always another level. At the beginning, I remember the first $12,000 I invested in a business coach. I was so nervous, I was so uncomfortable. And then it's like the next time it was 25K. and then the next thing is that you end up having payroll that's like that every month, and then the next thing. So it's like you better get used to reinvesting into your growth, So that's what I would say to marketers and business, and I think business owners too, right? I think sometimes business owners, they'll look at, let's say, they'll invest $100,000 to consulting or into a mastermind, and then they'll be uncomfortable paying someone on their team, a very, very aggressive competitive rate because that person's really skilled, but they're like, like copywriters, for example, perfect example. Some businesses will want to pay like $2K to a copywriter, but they'll spend $50,000 on a mastermind. It's like, why don't you pay the copywriter $4K a month and get a higher skilled copywriter, or $5K a month? It's 36 grand extra per year, but the output that you're going to get from that talented person and skilled person, you're going to make a lot more back,
I agree with that. And the one thing that investing in yourself and your upskilling your skill level does as well is your value goes up to yourself, and you can actually charge more for your time and your worth. I remember when I started investing in myself, the more I invested, the more I was able and willing to increase our prices for our packages. And the interesting thing was, the more we charged, the better clients we got, and the more people, like the same amount of people started saying, kept on saying yes, but we started getting better clients. And we actually also had more money to spend on providing a better service, right? And so that's also another thing that happens when you invest in yourself. One thing about compensation there, I know that you train copywriters and stuff like that, which, by the way, I've seen your copy. I think you do an incredible job. Personally, how I would work, and that would be, I don't know if you consult on the side or if you don't, but the only way I would work for someone would be, I don't care about the base. I want a piece of the upside. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, where is the business right now? Okay, great. That's all for you. Anything that I get from here moving forward, I want a piece of it. And that piece is negotiable. And that's actually how I have designed the comp structure for everyone in my team. And what that does is it removes the whole, oh, you're the boss, so you make all the money. I'm working my ass off, and then you're keeping all of it. And it actually makes them more incentivized, and it protects you at the lower point and at the higher point. And what I mean by that is, if you are, say, and I'm talking about from a business owner, if you are a $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, say $100,000 a month business, and you want to hire a very talented copywriter that costs $5-10 grand a month, you can actually pay them less salary, but give them a piece of the upside, because you know that you're protected. You're not going to come out of pocket a lot, but you will probably pay them a lot more if they produce. And if they produce, like, great, that's money that I wouldn't have made. And from a copywriter perspective, if you truly believe in your value, if you truly believe in your skill level and the value you're going to bring to the business, like, I know I'm going to help the business increase. Well, shit, I want to make proportionate to the value that I'm going to generate to the business, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you actually go from needing to have a bunch of clients to only focusing on a couple of clients that you can grow with them and help them grow, because one of my core values, as you know, is focus, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, if I have 10 different clients, I don't know, can I actually provide the kind of service that I need for all of them? Instead, can I charge a small percentage or like a base plus a small percentage and help them grow and have 2-3 clients, but not have a ceiling on my income and continue growing my income while only having a limited amount of clients, right?
Yeah. Well, the data's with you on that one from my experience with copywriters, because the ones that make the most, 20, 30K a month, they usually have only 2 clients or 3 clients max. It's always because the deal is, whether it's a performance percentage or whether it's a really high base because of the business is already scaled or whatever, it's usually less clients, more ownership over the upside or the growth of the marketing. So, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I think the thing is with those copywriters, like, the reason that they're there is because they've got the skill, So if you don't have the skill yet, then sure, maybe. But I think actually, if you don't have the skill, sometimes that also could work for you, right? Because then there's less risk for a business owner too, right? It's like, well,
That's
listen,
perfect.
Yeah, like, I'm here, I'm ready to serve at the rate that you're offering, and you know, if I can get you to that next level, would you be open to, you know, bonus or percentage of the upside? Or yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, that actually works better for you because it's like, hey,
Mm.
look, you know, you're offering, I don't know, $2,500 for this. What about I take actually $1,000, but instead of the extra 1,500, I want X percentage of whatever I provide to the company. The
Mm.
business owner is incentivized because they're like, well, shit, that's an extra $1,500 in my pocket. And for you, you're incentivized to actually bust your ass and do well for them because you know that if you prove your value, you're going to be compensated for that. Now, if you suck, then you suck, and that's that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the big caveat is that you actually have to be good if you want that to work. So
Sure.
you actually
Yeah.
you gotta get good at what you do. You know. Mm.
And believe it or not, I don't like when people ask for big salaries. For me, people that ask for big salaries is a red flag.
Mm.
Like I always pay market value, if not less, for base, but I give a very hefty upside.
Mm.
So whatever the market is, I always pay like 25% less. But again, I give a hefty upside where if you perform, you will like 5 to 10x market value for that position.
What's the thinking? What's the thinking with making the base low up front, like in terms of attracting the right people?
I want people that are incentivized based on performance and based on them putting their name on the line and their skill on the line and actually showing up versus people that have big ass salaries and that come in from day one with a salary. I've tested both and it's always worked for me with a lower base because here's the thing. People who are hungry, people who want to really work, I am like for me lifetime balance is a myth. When people talk about like one of the first questions that I ask is what does work life balance mean to you,
Oh,
right?
work-life balance. Yeah. Mm.
And if people say, well, I
That's a
need
good
to be
question.
off by this time, or I need to take weekends off, or I need to take care of my family, I want to spend time with my kids and stuff like that, great, that's incredible. But that's not where I am at, and that's not where
Mm.
my company's at. We're on 24/7. If you're not going to be available on Sunday at 5 p.m., don't work for me because I'm going to probably message you and I expect a message back within 30 minutes, right? So it's like we're
Mm-hmm.
very entrepreneurial, we're very aggressive, we're on all the time, right? We don't take days off, we don't take weekends off, we don't take vacations, that kind of stuff. So it doesn't work for a lot of people, and that's okay. I understand that, you know? So because of that, I want people that are hungry. I want people that are aggressive. And usually I can see that with the comp structure that they ask for. If they're asking
Ah.
for a big salary, then for me it's like, oh, I know the kind of person you are. That works, just not in my company. I'm not saying
That's so interesting.
I'm not saying yeah, I'm not saying what I'm doing is right or wrong. It's just that's what's right for us. And I'm not saying you're a good or bad person. It's not a fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get this because I think that a lot of business owners have the frame where they say, you know, this is, you can be however you want. It's just that this is what we're looking for in this job description. This is the type of person that we want in this role. And I think it's
Yeah.
a really strong frame because it's like, well, you do what you want to do. This is what we're looking for. And I'll find some marketers will say like, oh, you know, look at this company, look at what they're offering, or they, you know, this company wants to work on weekends, you know, that blah blah blah. It's like, well, somebody out there is going to be a culture fit for that, and it's going to be the perfect fit. And actually, it's better that they have it that way because that's what they want. That's what's going to align with their vision, than to say like, you know, they must cater to everybody in the marketplace that wants that role. And I've actually found a lot of marketers, or not maybe just marketers, maybe just people in general in our space, like going back to the ego thing, a lot of them will come in as a mercenary. They'll deliver for 2-3 months for clients, and then it's like, you know, let's say somebody comes to you, that, you know, 10K a month retainer, and then after 3 months they kind of put you on the backbone and add two or three more clients because it's just about cash flow for them. It's not really about your business. I think business owners over the last, at least, yeah, ever since I've been in the industry, they're a lot more aware that that's like, you know, people do that. So, you know, good. We're not gonna allow that in our business, kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. I think that's okay. That makes a lot of sense. Well, it's been a really good conversation. I've got like so many notes here. I actually quite like that question. Work life, like, what's your perspective on like how do you see work life balance? It's a really great question. Like through the interview, you asked that kind of question, like when you first meet them.
Yeah, we have because our we have a pretty rigorous interview process now. It's there's like group interview, then there is a 48-hour test, reference calls, then there is like a 30-day trial, paid trial, and stuff like that. So in that first initial group interview, actually right after this, that's why I told you I have a hard stop, because I have a group interview for this new role that we have. I've got like 12 candidates or something that are going to be showing up. That's one of the questions that we ask. What does work-life balance mean to you? You know, and then also the other question that I ask about that, because specifically that, it's after the last 3 years, I've realized that I financed a bunch of people that I should have never even hired. And it was just not a culture fit. And it wasn't their fault. I just did not make the expectations clear from day one. So my goal now is not only to make it very clear, but to actually make the job seem shittier than it actually is.
Interesting, yeah, interesting.
So I actually make the job sound horrible before I hire them. Because I've done it the other way where I oversell the job and then they come in and then it's like less than what they expected. And now it's the other way around. I make it sound tougher than when they come in. It's like under promise and over deliver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the framework that I use right now. And it's helped us out. Like literally in all of our job descriptions, I have the word, I'm looking for a workhorse. You know? And a lot of people, I get a lot of criticism for it. A lot of people message me thinking I'm crazy, or this is, the whole hustle culture and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get it. It's not for everyone. And again, I'm not saying you're a good person, you're a bad person, I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. That's who I am. That's what I'm expecting. That's who you are. That's what you're expecting. Doesn't align? Great. I'm pretty sure there's a company there that will take you,
Yeah, and there's people that will take that deal because there are people that don't want to work on a salary. They actually want to work on the, like let's grow together kind of thing. So, hey, listen, I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Everyone in our company is on that right now. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing all of this. I really appreciate it. And where can people find you if they want to see what you're up to and learn from you and follow your journey?
For sure, man. We're most active on Instagram, so just go to Instagram, type Bashar JK2. There's probably a few fake accounts, so it's the one that's got over 2 million followers. Give me a follow, send me a DM if you're interested in learning what we do, and would love to have you.
Thanks so much for your time, man. Chat soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Take care.